It was a deal ANA never wanted, a fleet it never planned for, and an aircraft too big for its long-term vision. When All Nippon Airways inherited 3 Airbus A380s from the failed Skymark Airlines deal, it wasn't a strategic victory, it was a compromise, a burden disguised as opportunity. But the moment ANA accepted those superjumbos, a new set of problems began. This is the story of what happened after the cameras turned off and the headlines faded, and it's far more turbulent than you think. Last time we uncovered how ANA was forced into purchasing 3 Airbus A380s after stepping in to rescue Skymark Airlines from bankruptcy. ANA took the deal to preserve harmony in Japan's tightly controlled aviation sector and, critically, to gain access to lucrative Haneda slots. But with the ink dry on the contracts and the aircraft already under construction, the question quickly became, what now? The A380s were arriving. ANA had to make them work. But nothing about the arrangement fit ANA's long-term vision. ANA didn't just receive 3 massive airplanes, they inherited an operational mismatch of epic proportions. The Airbus A380 is designed for high-capacity, long-haul routes between slot-constrained airports. ANA, on the other hand, had built its strategy around fleet commonality and flexible operations. The A380 didn't fit. First problem, the A380 could only operate out of Narita, not Haneda. ANA's international growth strategy had been shifting toward Haneda, which is more centrally located in Tokyo and preferred by business travelers. But the A380, too large for Haneda's infrastructure at the time, was locked to Narita. That alone was a blow to profitability and customer convenience. Second issue, crew specialization. ANA needed entirely separate pilot and cabin crew training programs for just 3 aircrafts. This meant higher recurring costs and less operational flexibility. If a crew member called in sick, you couldn't just swap in someone from the 777 or 787 pool. Everything had to be A380 specific. Third, and perhaps most damaging, maintenance. Operating only 3 A380s meant ANA couldn't achieve the economies of scale that airlines like Emirates or Singapore Airlines enjoy. Every spare part, every maintenance procedure, every delay became disproportionately expensive. The aircraft quickly turned into cost centers, not profit generators. One detail often overlooked: ANA didn't start with a blank canvas. The A380s were already under assembly when ANA stepped in. Originally designed for Skymark, the aircraft came with a premium-heavy interior layout that made little sense for ANA's market. This forced ANA to retrofit the cabins, essentially gutting aircraft mid-production. Modifying an A380's interior is an engineering nightmare. Unlike other wide-bodies, the A380's double-deck design means every change ripples across systems. Air circulation, wiring, and structural reinforcements had to be adapted. Delays mounted, costs soared. What should have been ANA's chance to debut a new long-haul experience became a logistical mess. And all this effort was just to make the aircraft serviceable, not exceptional. With no viable use for the A380s elsewhere, ANA turned to one route: Tokyo to Honolulu. It was a logical choice. Hawaii is a top leisure destination for Japanese travelers, and high-volume travel could theoretically support the A380's scale. But even this strategy was fragile. Initially, ANA launched the service with enormous fanfare, branding the aircrafts as Flying Honu, with colourful turtle liveries and a family-friendly approach. But then, macroeconomic headwinds hit. The yen weakened, outbound tourism slowed, and COVID-19 loomed. Even before the pandemic, load factors were underwhelming. ANA's A380 flights often failed to hit break-even passenger numbers. Unlike Emirates, which could shift A380s between Dubai and global hubs, ANA was stuck flying 3 whales back and forth across the Pacific with no backup plans. Then came COVID. International borders slammed shut. The Tokyo-Honolulu route vanished overnight. ANA's A380s, once symbols of ambition, were parked for nearly 2 years. This was devastating. ANA couldn't redeploy the aircraft. There were no suitable routes, no demand, and no flexibility. Unlike smaller jets that could pivot to cargo or domestic flights, the A380s sat idle, soaking up maintenance costs and depreciation. Even after Japan reopened in late 2022, international tourism rebounded slowly. The US opened earlier, but Japanese outbound travel remained sluggish. ANA was forced to relaunch A380 flights at partial capacity, with high overhead and uncertain returns. Desperate to salvage the situation, ANA doubled down on marketing. The flying Honu aircraft were turned into tourist attractions. ANA launched sightseeing flights where the plane would take off, circle Japan, and land without ever leaving the country. There were turtle-themed merchandise, promotional videos, and even social media campaigns aimed at families. The public loved the branding, but good PR doesn't always translate into financial viability. ANA also attempted charter flights and seasonal scheduling to better align capacity with demand. But the structural issue remained: 3 aircrafts locked to one route with sky-high operating costs. Fast forward to today, and the picture hasn't improved much. ANA operates the smallest major A380 fleet in the world, and with only 3 units, it endures the highest per-unit operating costs. Even in peak seasons, load factors sometimes hover below 50%, a dire number for an aircraft that needs to fly full to break even. At the same time, competition from Japan Airlines and low-cost carriers like Zip Air has intensified. Travelers now have more affordable and flexible options, putting even more pressure on ANA to fill those massive cabins. The A380's economies of scale only work at scale. That's the painful irony. Emirates has over 100 A380s and can make them work through sheer volume. ANA can't. It never could. Hindsight is always 20/20, but some aviation analysts argue that ANA should have walked away from the deal, even at the cost of losing future Haneda slots. By refusing the A380s, ANA could have doubled down on its 787 and 777 fleet, retaining flexibility and cost efficiency. In a twist of fate, delays in the Boeing 777X program meant that large aircrafts are once again valuable, but ANA was already locked into the A380s. Even if ANA had suffered short-term strategic loss, its long-term network planning and profitability might have benefited. Instead, it's stuck operating 3 white elephants with no graceful exit. So what happens next? A few scenarios are possible. First, ANA could keep the A380s until around 2030, using them as flying billboards and accepting the losses as marketing costs. This keeps the flying Honu brand alive and maintains a unique product offering, but the economics remain questionable. Second, ANA might shift to seasonal-only use, perhaps flying the A380s only during Japan's Golden Week, summer holidays, and Christmas travel peaks. This could reduce operational losses but risks underutilizing expensive assets. The third, more discreet option, retire them quietly once they are fully depreciated. As early as 2027 or 2028, ANA could phase out the A380s and never look back, chalking up the experience as a costly lesson in aviation politics and compromise. At every step, ANA tried to make the best of a bad situation. From creative branding to innovative scheduling, the airline did everything it could. But sometimes, no matter how polished the marketing or how beloved the aircraft, the business case just doesn't fly. So here's the question I want to leave you with. If ANA could redo the Skymark deal today, knowing everything that followed, should they still have taken the A380s? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was it a noble effort, a strategic misfire, or a necessary sacrifice in Japan's tightly knit aviation ecosystem? I'll be reading every take. Thanks for watching, and if you want more deep dives into the hidden stories behind aviation's biggest decisions, don't forget to subscribe.